really cryptic, I felt, kind of message, because this time of year, whenever a general manager for an NFL team or president or team owner or anyone starts talking, we have to pay extra attention because it's the offseason now. So teams are trying to shape their rosters for the next year. So here was Dave Ziegler, who is the general manager of the Las Vegas Raiders. He was on the Bussin' with the Boys podcast talking about their future at quarterback.
We're in charge of filling the most important position on the team. And so, yeah, there's some pressure that comes along with that. And however we fill it, it doesn't mean we're going to have an immediate answer, this year. You know what I mean? And so, but at the end of the day, we have to have an answer.
Right.
In some form or fashion.
Ooh,
right.
Translate that for me, Maggie.
Well, okay. Did we think that Aaron Rodgers was going to be a possibility to get traded to Las Vegas?
Yeah, definitely.
Right. He would constitute an answer for me, right? He would constitute an immediate answer, where Dave Ziegler just said, we might not have an immediate answer. So
right.
If I'm Aaron Rodgers, or if I'm the Green Bay Packers or whatever, how am I supposed to interpret that if I think maybe I could have one of the best quarterbacks in the league coming to my team?
Well, he said maybe. It could be a couple things.
Yeah.
It could be really they're not going to sign Aaron Rodgers. Could be negotiating with the Packers, saying, listen,
keep it close to the vest, right?
Yeah, we're not just going to give away the house. Sure. We're not desperate. Or it could be they just don't know what Aaron Rodgers is doing, and he's sort of setting the expectation, right? For Raiders fans are all in on Rodgers. They assume Aaron Rodgers is going to be in a Raiders uniform, just like our friends with the Jets assume they're getting either Lamar Jackson or Aaron Rodgers.
Well, Davante Adams stoked the fire there when he was like, Rodgers is going to live in my neighborhood and all that.
So maybe this was public relations saying, hey, this might not happen. I didn't read it as we're not in on Rodgers, because that just doesn't make any sense to me. Why would they not be in on Rodgers?
Maybe they feel like they don't want to give up the draft capital. I mean, the Raiders have the 7th overall pick this year. But the weird thing is that Dave Ziegler is the same part of the same front office that extended extensions to Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow, and the same person who brought over Chandler Jones, and the same person who has basically been building the sort of win now team.
Yeah.
So how many options do you really have at quarterback if it feels like you're all in?
Maybe you could be all in, but at a certain point you say, ooh, that didn't work, and then go the opposite way and say the all in failed.
Right.
But I think your point, do GMs usually get a chance once they go all in to
backtrack and be like, actually, sorry, I was wrong. We're not all in. We're going to rebuild and start over the rookie quarterback.
Like the current Brooklyn Nets. They went all in. They failed. Now they're going to build around Mikal Bridges and draft picks. Right. So I personally think the best thing for the Raiders to do might be to rebuild. I don't know that Aaron Rodgers turns them into a Super Bowl team. It's tough in the AFC. So maybe that's what he's doing here. Dave Ziegler hasn't been there long. I think he's plenty of rope to work with here. So I don't know.
This would be an all-time backtrack.
From Dave Ziegler?
Yeah.
How so?
All in last year, not in this year.
But Chandler Jones is done.
But you paid him like he was going to be a part of, you paid him like he was had a lot more in the tank.
They I don't think they really, if they don't get Rodgers, forget it. There's no way they're winning it. They won 7 games last year. So obviously the all-in failed. I'm not sure exactly what to do. Davante Adams is 30. So I think you could make
it. They paid him.
Yeah, but they could trade him. They could trade him again, maybe.
It's so funny.
I think you could make a compelling case that there's no reason to try and... If you don't get Aaron Rodgers, forget it. You're not going to the playoffs.
I think they could probably convince themselves that a Jimmy Garoppolo can get them to the playoffs. Now, the problem is Jimmy, what's he going to look like by the end of the season? And now you have Jarrett Stidham as the backup, right? So he's proven that maybe he's a capable backup, but, maybe they're going to fool themselves into thinking Garoppolo is the answer.
How many real high-quality players do they have besides Davante Adams and Max Crosby? Is there anyone else is there anyone there that they
Waller and Renfrow.
I don't know that Waller and Renfrow are that high quality anymore. I love both those guys.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're a big Waller and Renfrow
I'm a huge Waller and Renfrow fan, but Waller, once Davante got to town, sort of became marginalized. And he really was disappointing last year. He wasn't the elite tight end. And Renfrow isn't that expensive. So that's not as big a deal. I don't know. It just, you know what I mean about Darren Waller? It doesn't feel like Darren Waller's star is where it was.
Yeah, I can understand what you're talking about there. I mean,
he's 32, but remember, he was in the league for a while. I don't know. Stu's a Raiders fan. It doesn't feel like
Josh Jacobs had an unbelievable season, and now it looks like he could probably maybe a franchise tag.
Yeah.
And maybe you get one more year out of this. I don't know if Jacobs would be happy about that. I'm sure he would not be. But at least you get somebody who's a weapon in the run game and in the pass game. Like, that's where Jacobs is so good, where he is like Pete Kamara, when he's dangerous both ways. Stu, what do you want at quarterback, bud?
I'll take Rodgers. I will gladly take Aaron Rodgers.
I'm glad to know you'd take Aaron.
Perloff makes a very good point. Like, they could rebuild. I think if they don't get Rodgers, they should definitely go rebuild route. I don't think a Jimmy G or a Tannehill or a quarterback like that is the answer. But if Rodgers is there for the taking, I say go for it. And
what if there's no Rodgers? Do you want Jimmy G?
I do not want Jimmy G.
So it's either Rodgers or rebuild.
Or rebuild.
Rebuild starting with a draft pick, right?
Yeah.
Probably draft a quarterback?
Yeah, I'd say draft a quarterback.
I mean, I'm looking at the ages. Adams is 30. Waller is 30. Hunter Renfrow is a veteran. Yeah, here's another question. If they do draft a quarterback and don't sign a veteran, Davante Adams is going to force his way out of there. Wouldn't you think?
Well, he's already said that he'll stay no matter what. Stu's looking at me sideways. You don't buy it.
I don't buy it, no. I think if he doesn't have Aaron Rodgers or a competent quarterback, he's not going to want to be there.
It almost seems like it might be a bit of a waste, too. Like, if you really are rebuilding and restarting, you might as well trade Adams and get another. Do you think Adams gets a first-round pick right now?
Maybe. He's pretty darn good. Remember that catch he made off that Stidham play at the end where it was 8 yards ahead of him and he dove forward and stretched his arms?
He's always like that. Well, the work he does on the sidelines is unbelievable. Like, when you think he's out of bounds and it looks like he got a fraction of a toe in. I mean, he's incredible. And there are so many teams right now that if you were to put what is their number one priority in the offseason, wide receiver would be one of them. I mean, multiple teams need help at the wide receiver position. Like, Adams would have a massive market.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I would want Davante Adams so bad in Philadelphia. If I'm you, I would want him so badly in Buffalo.
Yeah. No, they can't pay Diggs and Adams, but it's a pipe dream.
The Eagles have like three significant, two elite level wide receivers to add Davante Adams. Really?
Yeah, it's like a little bit down on the list, but I mean, the New England Patriots would probably fall over themselves for Davante Adams. You have the New York Giants would fall all over themselves for Davante Adams. The Dallas Cowboys, ladies and gentlemen, would love Davante Adams. We could keep going with the Bears. I mean, everyone would want him.
Yeah. I saw a headline today that the Bills will not trade Stephon Diggs because the cap number was too big. Honestly, that might be one thing, but if you could get Davante Adams, you might trade Stephon Diggs. He's such an upgrade. I'm sorry, I love Diggs, but Davante Adams is probably isn't he the best receiver right now? He's old, so you have a small window.
Old. I mean, he's 30. He's not old. I know you think in receiver terms that means ready for the nursing home.
Yeah, I mean, he's not Jamar Chase, but he can make anybody look good. Yeah, if I'm the Eagles, I say goodbye to either of those receivers. Bring in Davante Adams.
855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. The Chargers could use another receiver, although I wouldn't trade him in the division. Okay.
Oh, I love it. We've already traded Davante Adams away from the Raiders.
Yeah, not to the Chargers. That's not going to happen. Okay, so we want to hear from you about the Raiders. Is it imperative that they solve their quarterback issue this offseason? I mean, you just heard there from Stu, diehard Raider fans. Rodgers or rebuild is what he's saying. If you don't get Aaron Rodgers, tear the whole thing down. Don't try to duct tape this thing up with Jimmy Garoppolo or Ryan Tannehill. Don't try to convince yourself that, you're going to be something you're not.
Maybe go with Jarrett Stidham, who played okay at the end. And in that scenario, you're sitting at number 7.
You draft a quarterback.
But do you, though? Because here's my issue. If you're rebuilding, do you want a shot at the apple? Do you want a shot at the apple next year? And say you draft
tank for Caleb Williams.
Say you end up with what if you draft a quarterback and then you win 3 games and you're sitting there with number 1? So maybe you go really bad and just go Stidham. I actually, when Ziegler said that, I said, oh, maybe he's going Stidham, not drafting a guy, and secretly wants to get in on the big names for next year's draft.
It's possible.
Does he have enough time to do that? He's kind of new there.
I mean, because you watched the process all those years in Philly. Everyone's got to be on board. Ownership, front office, everyone has to be on board. Then you have to hope that the commissioner of the league doesn't come in and screw it all up. But everyone has to be on the same page if you're going to try to tank in that way.
Yeah, I mean, well, listen, if they come
can't sell Mark Davis, be like, hey, we're going to be a playoff team, wink, wink, but we're actually going to win 2 games.
But if they show up at camp day 1 and Jarrett Stidham is the starter with no rookie there, That's pretty much
telling you without telling
That's
you.
waving the white flag.
Well, if you trade Adams, for sure. 855-212-4CBS. If you're a diehard Raider fan, we know we're on in Las Vegas. We know we have a lot of Raider fans listening. You hear that from the general manager. It's basically, listen, we need somebody, but we don't need the guy right now. We might not. I don't know how I'd feel about that. That's not what I'm being sold.